Dear students, I am Dr. Prakash Narayan Reddy from Department of Biotechnology. So today we will be discussing about an important topic in cell signaling called as enzyme linked receptors. So in the earlier classes we have discussed about G protein coupled receptors. So we have studied G protein coupled receptors. So the next class of cell surface receptors are enzyme linked receptors. So this is the last topic in our unit 3. So let us see what are enzyme linked receptors and what is their significance. So in this particular class we will be discussing about what is an enzyme linked receptor and we will study its structure. Following which we will study what are different types of enzyme linked receptors. So there are basically 6 different types of enzyme linked receptors are there. Of these 6 different classes, receptor tyrosine kinases, also referred to as RTK in short. So receptor tyrosine kinases are the most important class of enzyme linked receptors. So we will see what are receptor tyrosine kinases, and among these receptor tyrosine kinases, these receptor tyrosine kinases operate different mechanisms of signaling cascade. So of these many signaling cascades, Ras-MAP kinase pathway is one of the most essential pathways. So receptor tyrosine kinases can activate numerous signaling cascades. That is, suppose this is the cell and there is a receptor here. So once a ligand binds, it can activate different signaling cascades. So of this, Ras-MAP is one of the most important mechanism of signal transduction. So we will see today what is Ras-MAP kinase pathway, and we will also discuss briefly about what is the importance of Ras protein and its connection to numerous cancers. Then finally we will see the mechanism of action of enzyme linked receptors. Like we will study the examples of fibroblast growth receptor as well as insulin. So we will study the result of enzyme linked receptor signaling using fibroblast growth factor as well as insulin as signaling molecules. So what will happen when these ligands bind to receptor tyrosine kinases? So let us enter into the topic. So first thing is, what are enzyme linked receptors? So enzyme linked receptors are nothing but they are a group of transmembrane proteins. So as you all know, almost all receptors are transmembrane proteins. These enzyme linked receptors, they either contain intrinsic enzyme activity on their intracellular domain or associated directly with an intracellular enzyme. So two things are possible for enzyme linked receptors. Either receptor itself will have an enzymatic activity in the intracellular side, or the receptor directly associates with a protein having the enzymatic activity. So these are the two possibilities for enzyme linked receptors. So first one is receptor itself has the enzymatic activity. Second case is receptor gets associated with a protein having the enzyme activity. So one is intrinsic enzymatic activity, second is extrinsic, means it associates with a protein having the enzymatic activity. So these two models of action are included in enzyme linked receptors. So upon ligand binding, a conformational change is transmitted via a transmembrane domain. So what happens, as you all know, we have studied previously number of times. So whenever a ligand binds, it will induce a change in conformation of the receptor. So once ligand binds to the receptor, it induces the change in the conformation, thereby the enzymatic activity gets activated. So that is how once the receptor enzyme activity is initiated, the signaling cascade is passed on to several different proteins through kinase activity or through series of phosphorylation steps. So this entire thing is a signaling cascade. So we will study what are different parts of an enzyme linked receptor. So the first and foremost part of enzyme linked receptor is ligand binding domain. So ligand binding domain is the extracellular portion of the receptor. So the part of the receptor that is exposed on the outside of the cell, which will be able to bind the ligand or a signaling molecule like insulin, growth factors, and other hormones are signaling molecules. So this particular ligand binding domain has strong affinity for specific ligands. See, a receptor can bind only one type of ligand or some closely related ligands. So receptor specificity is very high. So it binds to only few types of receptors, signaling molecules or closely related signaling molecules. So suppose there is a receptor is there, it can bind to related or closely related ligand molecules, and each ligand molecule can initiate a different type of response. So through a single receptor, it can induce multiple types of responses, cellular responses. So second part of the enzyme linked receptor is transmembrane domain. So transmembrane domain is the portion associated with the cell membrane or plasma membrane. So this particular region is highly hydrophobic. So being hydrophobic, it gets hidden in the plasma membrane. So this entire portion, suppose this is the double layered plasma membrane. So this entire portion is referred to as the transmembrane domain. So it has hydrophobic amino acids and it tethers receptor to cell membrane. So what is the function of transmembrane domain is, it strongly attaches the receptor to the cell membrane. So it positions the receptor in the cell membrane. That is the function of transmembrane domain. So the last part of the enzyme linked receptor is intracellular domain or enzymatic domain. So nothing but cytosolic active enzyme domain. So this particular portion, which is cytosolic or inside intracellular portion, having the enzymatic activity. Sometimes receptor itself will have the enzymatic activity, or receptor may associate with another protein having the enzymatic activity. So these are the three different parts of the enzyme linked receptors. So next we will see what are different classes of enzyme linked receptors. So broadly they are categorized into 6 types. So the first type is receptor tyrosine kinases. So these are the enzyme linked receptors. What they do is they phosphorylate specific tyrosine residues on a small set of intracellular signaling molecules. So receptor tyrosine kinases, here the receptors itself have the enzymatic activity. So what is that enzymatic activity? It is kinase activity. So here receptor tyrosine kinases have intrinsic kinase activity. They phosphorylate a set of proteins, signaling proteins inside the cell. So that is how the receptor can initiate the signaling cascade. So receptor tyrosine kinase have intrinsic enzymatic activity. So second class of enzyme linked receptors are tyrosine kinase associated receptors. So this particular class of enzyme linked receptors, receptor itself does not have enzymatic activity. Rather they are associated with proteins having the tyrosine kinase activity. So that is why we call them as tyrosine kinase associated receptor. So previously tyrosine kinase receptor. So third class of enzymatic linked receptors are receptor serine threonine kinases. In this particular class of receptors, receptor has serine threonine kinase activity. Means they can phosphorylate the other proteins on the serine or threonine amino acids. So based on the amino acid, kinases are classified into tyrosine kinases or serine threonine kinases or histidine kinases. Like that, different classes are there. So third class is receptor serine threonine kinases, where they phosphorylate the signaling proteins on serine or threonine amino acids. The fourth class of enzyme linked receptors are histidine kinase associated receptors. So these receptors are associated with proteins having the histidine kinase activity. Means these associated proteins, they phosphorylate other proteins on the histidine amino acids. Then the fifth class is receptor tyrosine phosphatases, wherein receptor itself has enzymatic activity and this enzymatic activity is phosphatase. Means they break down or they remove a phosphate group from the downstream signaling proteins. So those are receptor tyrosine phosphatases. Then the last class of enzyme linked receptors are receptor guanylyl cyclases, where this particular receptors synthesize or manufacture the cyclic GMP. As you all know, cyclic GMP is a very strong secondary messenger which will amplify the signal as well as translocate the signal inside the cell. So these are broadly 5 different classes of enzyme linked receptors. So we will study in our syllabus about receptor tyrosine kinases. So today we will study about receptor tyrosine kinases. So these are predominant type of enzyme linked receptors. So these are the most prominent predominant class of enzyme linked receptors, and they have tyrosine kinase activity. They have tyrosine kinase activity, means they can phosphorylate other proteins on the tyrosine residues. They phosphorylate themselves as well as others also. So we can call them by different names. So you can call them as receptor tyrosine kinases or tyrosine kinase receptors. Both names are synonymous. So these receptors have intrinsic kinase activity encoded by the intracellular domain, also referred to as cytoplasmic tail. So these receptor itself has the intrinsic enzymatic activity. This enzymatic activity is located on the cytoplasmic tail. So this particular region has the kinase activity. So it goes and phosphorylates receptor on several different places on the tyrosine residues. What is the mechanism of action? How this particular mechanism happens is, so first thing is ligand binds to the receptor tyrosine kinases, which leads to dimer formation. So typically, most commonly, all enzyme linked receptors in the normal state, they will be in the monomer form. So when a ligand binds, ligand binding will lead to dimerization. So ligand binding will lead to dimerization. So within the dimer, the conformation is changed, locking the kinase into an active state. So ligand binding and dimerization will change the conformation of the receptor. So thereby kinase activity gets activated. Kinase gets activated. So kinase of one receptor phosphorylates the tyrosine on the other. So as you all know, it is a receptor is a dimer. So once ligand binds, it leads to dimerization. So one receptor phosphorylates the other receptor. This receptor phosphorylates the other receptor on the tyrosine residues. So these phosphorylated residues will serve as docking sites for several other proteins. So that is how signaling cascade is passed. Once ligand binds, kinase activity gets activated. They phosphorylate receptors on several different tyrosine amino acids. These phosphorylated residues will serve as docking sites for other signaling proteins. These signaling proteins will transmit the signal inside the cell. So that is how it will go on. So this forces the activation leap out of the kinase site, allowing ATP binding and resulting in enhanced kinase activity. So this is how changing the conformation will increase the kinase activity. This increased kinase activity will further phosphorylate some more tyrosine residues. So this particular phosphotyrosine, that is tyrosine attached to phosphate group, serves as docking site for many intracellular signaling proteins that contain the SH2 domains. So what type of proteins will come and dock on the receptor is domains or proteins which have SH2 domains. So whichever intracellular signaling proteins having SH2 domain, they can come and dock themselves onto the phosphotyrosine residues. So students, this is how a receptor tyrosine kinase operates. So once ligand bind, it leads to dimerization. So dimerization activates the kinase activity, thereby receptor gets phosphorylated on several different positions. So these phosphorylated tyrosines serve as docking sites for other proteins having SH2 domain. So example is GRB2. So GRB2 is a signaling protein having SH2 domain. So it can come and bind to phosphorylated tyrosine molecules. Now this particular GRB2 binds to other signaling molecules and the signal is transferred through the signaling cascade, and then it will ultimately lead to a cellular change. So this is how it can operate. So basically there are two pathways how receptor tyrosine kinases can activate. One is RAS MAP pathway. Another is JAK-STAT pathway. So these are the two most important signaling pathways through which receptor tyrosine kinases operate. One is RAS MAP kinase pathway. Second one is JAK-STAT pathway. So today we will see about RAS MAP kinase pathway. So how does RAS MAP kinase pathway operate? So when ligand binds to extracellular domain of a growth factor receptor, a dimer is formed. So mostly RAS MAP kinase pathways are involved in growth factors. So whenever growth factor is a signaling molecule, most of the growth factors operate through the RAS and MAP kinase pathway. So what happens is it will dimerize. Once a ligand binds, it will lead to dimerization. Then dimerization will lead to phosphorylation of tyrosine residues. So once phosphorylation of tyrosine residues happens, then GRB2, as we already discussed, GRB2 stands for growth factor receptor bound protein, will come and attach to the phosphotyrosine residues. So GRB2 protein is directly associated with another protein called as SOS. So this is how the sequence happens. Ligand binding, receptor dimerization, phosphorylation of receptor, then binding of GRB2 containing a SH2 domain, then SOS protein comes and binds to GRB2. So SOS protein, also referred to as SOS, stands for son of 7-less. So these are a group of proteins which are guanine nucleotide exchanging proteins. These proteins serves to exchange GDP for GTP. So their role is only to exchange GDP or remove GDP and add a GTP. So this particular SOS molecule, what it does is, it goes and interacts with RAS. RAS is a guanine nucleotide binding protein. So RAS is a molecular switch. So when RAS is having GDP, it is inactive. When GDP is exchanged with the GTP, RAS GTP is active molecule. So SOS, son of 7-less protein, helps in exchanging of RAS GDP with RAS GTP. So that is how now RAS molecule becomes activated, and further RAS can go and activate other proteins. So once RAS has GTP, what RAS does is, it will activate another protein called as RAF. So RAS, it is a GTP bounding protein, it goes and activates another protein called as RAF. So RAF is a kinase. Now what RAF does is, or RAF1 goes and activates another protein called as MEK. So now activated MEK, it goes and activates another protein called as MAP kinase, mitogen activated protein kinase. Now mitogen activated protein kinase, it can diversify, it can do multiple roles. So one of the common, so this entire thing is a signaling cascade. So starting from GRB2, SOS, after that RAS, RAF1, so now MEK, and then finally mitogen activated protein kinase, MAP kinase. So this is how the signaling cascade is transferred from one protein to another protein. So now this particular protein, finally mitogen activated protein kinase, can phosphorylate several different proteins. So based on the type of proteins it phosphorylates, it will lead to numerous cellular response like cellular differentiation, cellular division, or apoptosis, or cell death, like that. So one of the proteins which gets phosphorylated by mitogen activated protein kinase are, these are some of the examples, FOS and ZUN. So these are the transcription factors that activated by, mitogen activated protein kinases. So what do they do is, these are transcription factors, they activate several genes which are required for gene transcription. So this is how cell signaling mechanism operates through RAS MAP kinase pathway. So this is the pathway. So binding of a growth factor like epidermal growth factor will lead to dimerization. Then it will bind GRB2. GRB2 activates SOS. SOS activates RAS. So SOS is a GDP exchanging protein. So it exchanges GDP with GTP. Now RAS is active. So RAS can have multiple pathways. So one of the common is RAF MAP kinase pathway. So RAF will activate MEK. MEK here K2 and lead to proliferation. So in another pathway, it will activate the apoptosis. So this is how the operation of RAS-MAP kinase pathway happens. So what is the clinical significance of RAS-MAP kinase pathway? So MAP kinase pathway, so it is involved in several physiological processes such as cell proliferation, apoptosis, cell differentiation and tissue development. So these are some of the important cellular processes which are covered under the RAS-MAP kinase pathways. So MAP kinase pathways are regulated by RAS proteins. So one of the key protein in the RAS-MAP kinase is RAS protein. So this RAS protein is very important in several cancers. Why? Because so in approximately 30% of human cancers, this particular RAS protein is mutated. So this is the importance of RAS protein. So if RAS protein gets mutated, what happens is it will lead to most of the cancers. So how RAS can operate is, as you all know, if RAS protein gets mutated, it permanently or most of the time it will be bound to GTP. So when it is bound to GTP, irrespective of the signal, it is continuously sending the signal for growth. So as you all know, cancer is nothing but unregulated or unchecked growth. So how this happens is because of mutated RAS protein. Since RAS protein is always in GTP bound conformation, it is continuously sending the signal for cellular proliferation. So it is the same thing only. So in most of the case, what happens is the intrinsic rate of GTP hydrolysis is decreased. So RAS protein has an intrinsic GTP hydrolysis. So it can, once it does its function, it can hydrolyze the GTP to GDP. So this particular activity gets reduced in mutated RAS proteins. Thereby protein is active or protein is bound in GTP state for prolonged time. So what is the result is, it is predominantly in GTP bound form, thereby continuously signal is activated. So once it is always bound to GTP, irrespective of the signaling molecule, it is sending the signal for cellular proliferation. Thereby there is a cancerous growth. So now we have seen what is receptor tyrosine kinases, we have seen RAS-MAP kinase pathway. Now we will see some of the examples. So we have seen how epidermal growth factor operates. Now we will see the example of fibroblast growth factor. So fibroblast growth factor family constitutes one of the most important groups of paracrine factors that act during development. So this particular class of fibroblast growth factors, mostly they operate during the embryonic development, and these are paracrine factors. In the sense, they ensure their activity or they act on close by or neighboring cells. So mostly they are also responsible for determining certain cells to become mesoderm, production of blood vessels, lymph outgrowths, as well as differentiation of numerous cell types. So all these developmental activities are taken care by fibroblast growth factor. So these particular developmental activities are controlled by fibroblast growth factor, so which operate through the receptor tyrosine kinases. So it is same thing, mechanism is same. So binding of a fibroblast growth factor receptor will lead to dimerization and activation of receptor tyrosine kinase activity. So once ligand binds, it activates the enzymatic activity of the receptor tyrosine kinase. So it is normal, again they phosphorylate each other. Each receptor phosphorylates the other partner. And so three things can happen. So fibroblast growth factor, when they bind to a receptor, it can operate at three levels. First thing is, as we have seen one example, it can activate RAS-MAP kinase pathway. So RAS-MAP kinase pathway is mostly involved in cell proliferation. So the second mechanism of action of fibroblast growth factor receptor is activation of phospholipase C. So enzyme receptor can activate the phospholipase C. Phospholipase C will break down phosphatidyl inositol diphosphate into IP3 and DAG. IP3 is inositol triphosphate, DAG is diacylglycerol. That is the second mechanism. In third mechanism, as I have told you before, there is another pathway called as JAK-STAT pathway. So these are the three pathways how fibroblast growth factor receptors operate. So these are the different mechanisms. So one is RAS-MAP kinase pathway. Second one is phospholipase C, which will lead to IP3 and DAG. Third mechanism is JAK-STAT pathway. And there are others also like AKT pathway. So these pathways will ultimately lead to several types of cellular responses such as cell proliferation, differentiation, survival, anti-apoptosis and angiogenesis. So these are some of the important developmental activities controlled by fibroblast growth factor receptors. So what is the clinical significance of fibroblast growth factor receptors? So what is the thing is, mutations in fibroblast growth factor receptor 1. So this is one example where, so a fibroblast growth factor receptor 1, mutations in this particular receptor causes a syndrome called as Pfeiffer syndrome. So in this particular case, it is contains several malformations in skull, like they have severe limb defects as well as premature fusion of cranial sutures that results in abnormal skull and facial shape. So these are some of the outcomes of the mutations in fibroblast growth factor receptor. So any deviations, any changes in the normal thing will lead to severe outcomes. So one mutation in fibroblast growth factor receptor leads to so much, developmental abnormalities. Like another thing is, even you would have seen some individuals have a cleft palate wherein their fusion of cranial bones is improper and they will have a gap in their jaws. So it's called as upper lip mostly. So those also associated with mutations in fibroblast growth factor receptor. So cleft lip or palate are also associated with mutations in fibroblast growth factor receptor 1. So how does this particular fibroblast growth factor receptor operate? So one thing is, when a fibroblast growth factor receptor gets mutated, normally it can bind to one or two types of receptor ligands only. But when receptor gets mutated, it can bind to several different types of signaling molecules and will induce numerous signaling cascades which are not normally initiated. So thereby it will lead to abnormal cellular proliferation and abnormal developmental outcomes. So one mechanism is where fibroblast growth factor receptor is always signaling regardless of the fibroblast growth factor ligand. Some types of mutations, what happens is, receptor is kept always active. Even when there is absence of ligand, receptor is always active, thereby signaling the proliferation. In another case, what happens is, so this particular case will lead to a syndrome called as Pfeiffer syndrome, where they will have abnormalities in limb as well as cranial development. So second case is where another syndrome called as Apert syndrome. So this is also involved with severe developmental malformations in skull, face, hands and feet. So in this particular case, what happens is, receptor when it gets mutated, it can bind several different types of fibroblast growth factor receptors to which it normally does not bind. So it can bind not only one type, it can bind several different types, thereby leading numerous signaling cascades leading to Apert syndrome. So we have seen how fibroblast growth factor receptor operates. So next we will see how insulin molecule operates using receptor tyrosine kinases. As you all know, insulin, it has several different functions. So one of the prominent function is reducing the blood glucose level. So what happens is, when insulin binds to tyrosine kinase receptor, so normally insulin receptors are found in skeletal muscles as well as adipose tissue and liver cells also. So these cells respond to insulin ligand. So one of the thing what happens is, so once receptor gets activated, so the substrate for the receptor is a protein called as IRS1, insulin receptor protein. So IRS1 stands for insulin receptor substrate 1. So activated receptor activates another protein called as IRS1. Now IRS1 and it will activate another protein called as glucose transporter. So activation of insulin receptor substrate 1 will lead to activation of glucose transporter. So once glucose transporter gets activated, the cell membrane will, cell membrane gets studded with glucose transporters. So these glucose transporters, they uptake the glucose from blood into the cell and convert it into glycogen. So activation or binding of insulin will lead to increase in number of glucose transporters. So glucose transporters will reduce the blood glucose. Other words, what happens is when insulin binds, it leads to increase in glucose transporter, also called as GLUT4 transporter. It increases on the cell membrane, which will transport the glucose into the cell. So not only translocation of glucose, so one of the major function is reduce the blood glucose and convert it into glycogen. That is one of the function. So GLUT4 transporter increases in number on the cell surface and it leads to glycogen synthesis. Apart from that, insulin also stimulates protein synthesis and inhibits proteolysis. Apart from that, it will also play a major role in fatty acid synthesis. So these are the some of the functions of insulin molecule, insulin signaling. What do you say, insulin can operate? So once a insulin receptor binds, so what happens is it activates IRS protein. Now IRS protein activates the PI3 kinase, which will lead to, what do you say, export of glucose 4 transporters onto the plasma membrane. Now glucose 4 transporter, it moves the glucose into the cell. Glucose is converted into glucose 6-phosphate, which is ultimately made into glycogen. So this is one pathway. So other pathways, insulin also can, what do you say, initiate glycogen synthesis, initiate protein synthesis, as well as it can initiate cell growth, differentiation, survival, and what do you say, mitogenesis. So these are the some of the functions of insulin signaling. This is briefly about enzyme linked receptors, and here you should know one particular definition called as oncogenes. So oncogenes are nothing but, like I told you an example, RAS. So RAS is an oncogene. So when it is in normal, its function is normal, it does its activities very good. But RAS has a potential to become oncogene. So when by mutation or certain triggers, RAS can get mutated and this particular gene can turn into oncogene. So oncogenes play a very important role in development of cancers. So one of the classical example we studied is RAS protein only, which is a oncogene. And in next classes, you will study several other types of oncogenes also. So in conclusion, what I would like to say is, understanding the signaling pathways is one of the crucial things we needed today. Because once you understand how a signaling mechanism operates, we will know if the signaling cascade goes deviated, we know which proteins to target. So development of drugs, development of several different types of medications is possible by understanding the signaling mechanisms. Since we know that RAS protein is one of the oncogene, we can develop drugs that can go and inactivate the RAS protein. So understanding signaling mechanisms is very crucial and it is continuously ongoing research activity happening every day. These are the drugs that target signaling transduction will control ultimately, what do you say, all these mechanisms, metabolism as well as development. So I told you previous example also, like approximately 50% of drugs we consume belongs to G protein coupled receptors. So the remaining drugs, they act on the enzyme linked receptors. So understanding the signaling pathways is very crucial for better quality of life as well as controlling metabolic diseases and developmental diseases. So with this particular background, we have studied about enzyme linked receptors and their function, and we have studied examples of how they operate through fibroblast growth factors as well as insulin molecules as examples. So with this particular background, we will end this particular topic of enzyme linked receptors. Thank you very much.